from the morning. It was because I had to meet with Johnson, the director of our client's company, whom I find most challenging to deal with. If I had to describe Johnson in one word, it would be that he's incredibly competent at his job. He graduated from a top-notch university, so he's really sharp. His directions and questions during business negotiations are always spot on. Plus, he knows more about the product than I do, so if I give a vague explanation, his expression becomes increasingly stern. I keep going, knowing this, because I can't just stop, and then he says,
"Stop it."
There's no emotion in Johnson's words at that moment. It's like he's holding back anger, which is even scarier. When he tells me to stop, I wait for Johnson's next statement. And he invariably says,
"It's only natural to come prepared and convince the other party. Continuing this conversation is a waste of time."
There's probably a 20-year age gap between Johnson and me, but we're both professionals. I think polite conversation would be the norm, but Johnson seems to have no interest in that. At first, I didn't think Johnson was looking down on me, even though he was dismissive. But one day, after he unilaterally ended a business discussion, something happened that revealed his true feelings. He said loud enough for me to hear,
"This is why I can't stand middle school graduate."
The first time Johnson said that, I thought I'd heard wrong. He couldn't possibly say something that terrible. To be honest, I wanted to believe. I tried to reinterpret his words in my head. But they wouldn't change. And I couldn't exactly ask him to repeat himself, so I just went back to the office feeling frustrated. And then there was the day I felt unusually down. The reason was the homework Johnson had given me. The homework was to explain convincingly the benefits of doing business with our company to Johnson's satisfaction. I took it as his final warning. A decision point on whether to continue dealing with me. And if our relationship ended, it meant the end of business with our company. For our company, Johnson's firm is a major client. Losing them because of me would cause significant damage. All I had to do was to give a convincing explanation. But it wasn't that simple. I work in sales agent for an apparel manufacturer. With the rise of online and mail-order sales, some apparel brands are shifting away from physical stores. Still, storefronts remain a key sales channel, so they can't all be shut down. On the other hand, cost control is a major issue. That's where sales agents come in, managing staff recruitment, training, and sales activities, even though the stores and products belong to the manufacturers. But for customers, it doesn't matter who the staff works for. Poor service reflects badly on the store and, by extension, the brand. So, apparel manufacturers are naturally strict about choosing their sales agent. Johnson was the key person in that process. That day, I thought I'd done my homework well. I spent more time than usual making the presentation materials clear and easy to understand. I prepared thoroughly to answer any questions Johnson might have. But still, as I explained, Johnson's expression became increasingly stern. I felt like he could say, "Stop it," at any moment. But this time was different. Not in a good way, though. He did something worse than usual. Johnson picked up an inkwell that was on the table and poured it over the presentation materials I had made. I remember thinking it was odd that there was an inkwell on the table when we first sat down. Maybe Johnson had planned from the start to douse my documents with ink, preparing the inkwell just for that. "What the hell are you doing?" I couldn't help but shout at him. But Johnson, unapologetic, retorted,
"How can you say that? Just like before, you show me this dull material. This is just the limit of a middle school graduate."
He said it looking straight at me. Normally, I'd look away from his piercing gaze, but that day I glared back. I couldn't tolerate his attitude. Seeing the ink-soiled documents, I thought of those who had helped me prepare them. I had gone back to the office, racking my brain over how to handle the homework Johnson had given me and reported everything to my boss, Wilson. His response was that,
"This is serious. The company's fate hangs in the balance."
But contrary to the gravity of his words, Wilson's face was bright. That's just like him. Probably thinking, growth comes after overcoming challenges.
A professional grows by overcoming difficulties. Have the capacity to welcome adversity.
That's the kind of cliché Wilson would say with ease. I first heard those words right after I started dealing with Johnson. "The challenge I'm facing is too tough," I said to Wilson after a few meetings with Johnson.
The reward after overcoming it will be exciting.
That's when I realized. No matter what I say, he's not going to change my assignment. Yet, Wilson isn't the type to blindly throw his employees to the wolves. He listens properly and helps brainstorm solutions. If there's work to be done, he often lends a hand.
Once we have a draft, we can use it for presentations to other companies. How about we all brainstorm together?
That's what Wilson suggested to the team when I told them about the homework Johnson had given.
I'm in.
The first response was from Michael. He's a very friendly guy, always helpful and someone I really respect. It wasn't just Johnson who looked down on me for my education. Though to varying degrees, I've been treated unfairly several times just because I'm a middle school graduate. But having Wilson and Michael around is a big reason I've been able to keep going despite being down. More colleagues joined, and handling Johnson became a team effort. We even gave our team a name. It was the Make Johnson Eat His Words Squad. For a week leading up to our appointment with Johnson, we met repeatedly and finished the documents. After the documents were done, Michael even role-played as Johnson for our Q&A preparation. And now, the meticulously prepared documents lay ink-stained before me. Johnson, seemingly indifferent to my glare, commanded.
Come back in 30 minutes.
I didn't move.
Didn't you hear? Come back in 30 minutes.
Still, I didn't move. I didn't want to. Johnson started to look puzzled, noticing my unusual behavior. A heavy silence fell between us. I wasn't planning anything. Frankly, I was at a loss. What should I do now? Just then, the conference room door opened. Johnson and I turned to look. A woman in her late 50s stood there. Her expression was a mix of anger and surprise.
Why is the missus here?
Johnson muttered. I didn't know what he meant by Mrs., but from his shocked face, I guessed she wasn't usually here. Had she run all the way? She held her chest with her right hand, taking slow, deep breaths. Then, after a deep breath, she addressed Johnson.
Do you realize who he is, treating him like this?
Johnson looked dumbfounded, probably replaying her words in his mind. It wasn't only Johnson trying to make sense of her statement. I had no clue what she meant. The word "what she said" made me think, in my mind. I had no idea what the words the woman meant. Slowly walking into the room, she approached Johnson and said,
This man is Mr. Smith's grandson.
What?
Johnson froze. I then understood what she meant. My grandfather, the Mr. Smith she referred to, was the exclusive designer for this company. To me, he was just my regular grandpa. But he played a big part in making this company a respected apparel manufacturer over the years. Inspired by him, I apprenticed with my grandpa after middle school. I wanted to learn a job near my grandfather as soon as possible. One day, about 3 years into working with my grandpa, he called me. And he said,
Go and learn about the outside world. It's important to understand how many people are involved in getting a single piece of clothing to the customer.
So, I worked in a direct sales store for 2 years and then joined a sales agent company, where I've been for 3 years now. Only the CEO and a few executives at my current company know I'm my grandpa's grandson. I didn't want to use his name to get ahead and didn't want my colleagues to feel uneasy around me. Yet, I still didn't understand why she had come here so urgently. Then she turned to me and said,
I deeply apologize for Johnson's behavior on behalf of our company. I would like to apologize on behalf of the CEO.
She apologized. The Mrs. Johnson was referring to was the CEO's wife. Feeling awkward, I said, Please, you don't have to apologize. But how did you know about Johnson's attitude toward me? And why are you here? She explained.
I got a call from Wilson. My subordinate will make a great proposal to your company today, but a man named Johnson might squash it. Any help would be appreciated. I'm sorry for being late.
She looked apologetic. But how do you know Wilson? As if she knew my thoughts, she continued.
Wilson and I were middle school classmates. We reconnected at a reunion when we were 30 and have been in touch since we're in the same industry.
That's why she called him Wilson. I understood. But I still had one question. How does she know about my grandfather? How do you know about my grandfather? I asked, her face brightened a bit.
I used to work under your grandfather. I even met you when you were little.
I'm back. Returning to the office, I went straight to Wilson.
Seems like the presentation went well.
He said with a smile. The presentation was a disaster. But after that, it was a series of happy events. Even Johnson said he'd change his ways. To anyone else, my response wouldn't make sense. But Wilson seemed to understand everything.
Looks like you've overcome a challenge. You look good.
He said. It's all thanks to everyone. I appreciate it. I said, looking at everyone. Everyone looked back at me, smiling. I thought to myself, I'm really blessed with the people around me. My name is John Smith. I live with my beloved wife, Mary. I feel blessed every day to be married to her. But there's one big problem. Mary's illness. She was suddenly diagnosed with leukemia 2 years ago. She has been in and out of the hospital since then. Currently, she's feeling well and staying at home. I was hoping things would stay stable. Her recent joy is making my lunch. You must be tired, don't overdo it. I say. But she insists.
It's not hard at all. I enjoy thinking about what to make for your lunch every day.
She says this cheerfully. When she was hospitalized, I didn't cook and relied mostly on fast food or ready-made lunches. So, I really appreciate her homemade lunches. Today, like every day, I go to work with her packed lunch.
John, is that a lunch made by your wife?
Your wife get discharged, right? That's great.
My colleagues say during lunch break. Yes, thanks to everyone, she got discharged. I'm grateful for all your help. I reply. I had to leave early or arrive late often when Mary was in the hospital. My colleagues supported me without any complaints.
Don't worry about it. You helped me out when I was on paternity leave.
One colleague, Miller, says. Another, Stanton, adds.
Right. You covered for me when my kid was sick, and I had to leave early.
It's all about helping each other.
They say. I always tried to actively support others in difficult times, and they returned the favor. I had a warm feeling that it was a good place to work, however.
Hey, you guys are too loud. Go outside if you want to chat.
Our boss, Johnson, angrily shouts. I'm not his favorite. He was the only one to complain when I was often late or absent due to Mary's hospitalizations.
You're overprotective, using your illness as an excuse to slack off.
He accused. Please don't get me wrong. That's not it.
Shut up. You don't have enough self-awareness as an employee. I'll re-educate you.
I was so shocked that I couldn't respond. Sometimes, he wouldn't approve my leave requests, suspecting I was just slacking off. I had to consult HR to get my leave approved. It seems that the HR department had warned him, and because of that grudge, they were intentionally being harsh on me.
All right. Sorry?
Miller muttered.
John, let's eat outside.
My colleagues suggest, taking me away. Johnson is disliked for his attitude, though he's competent enough to be the boss.
He's really unpleasant.
You'll get his comeuppance one day.
My colleagues kept saying bad things about him, but I just smiled bitterly. Then, one day, I received a box full of vegetables from my mother, who lives in the countryside. She's a farmer and often sends me stuff she grows. My favorite is the eggplant she picks in the summer. On the other hand, Mary loves squashes, so the box was packed mostly with these two. She said,
I'll make your favorite eggplant dish.
Awesome. I replied. The eggplants my mother grows and the dish Mary makes are a perfect match. They're so good I could eat a lot. She even said she'd put some in my lunch for tomorrow. The next day, I went to work with my wife's homemade lunch, feeling great. But at lunchtime, when I opened the fridge at work, where's my lunch? I wondered. I usually put my lunchbox in the fridge as soon as I arrive at work, especially in the summer. I remembered putting it in the fridge this morning. As I was checking my bag,
What are you doing?
my boss, Johnson, came over with a smirk on his face. I had a bad feeling when I saw his smile. I'm looking for my lunch, I told him. Then he said something unbelievable.
Oh, that. I threw it away because leukemia is contagious.
What? I was shocked.
Is leukemia an infectious disease, isn't it?
He asked. What did this man say? I was so angry I was shaking.
A family member with such a disease. I wish you'd quit this company right now.
He said. That's outrageous. I couldn't hold back my anger anymore and was about to confront him, but he threatened me.
What's with that attitude? You want to defy me? I can fire you.
What? I was stunned.
If you get fired now, you won't be able to pay for your useless wife's treatment. I can fire you anytime I want.
He said. Hearing that, I calmed down. Johnson is related to the company's president and was hired through nepotism. The president is very fond of him and would likely support his decisions. If I really got fired, Mary's treatment costs are high. Even with insurance and subsidies, we're barely making ends meet. If I lost my job now, I might not be able to afford her treatment if she needed to be hospitalized again. I'm sorry, I said, then I went straight to the trash and picked up my lunchbox and started eating from it without hesitation.
Oh my God, that's disgusting.
Johnson commented mockingly. I pretended not to hear him and finished my lunch. When I got home, Mary noticed something was wrong.
What happened?
She asked. Nothing, I replied.
You can't fool me. Tell me.
Pressed by her, I honestly told her about what happened at work today. After hearing it, she looked sad.
That's tough.
Oh, sorry for bringing this up.
Don't be. I insisted you tell me.
She often faces misunderstandings because of her leukemia. These incidents hurt her the most. I deeply regretted speaking about it and vowed to avoid repeating such situations. Then, one day, a joint New Year Eve party.
Yeah, it's sudden, isn't it?
Apparently, our business has been struggling lately. There's talk that we're losing clients, and the remaining ones aren't too enthusiastic.
People are saying it's just a schmoozing event.
My colleagues shared this with me. Indeed, I hadn't heard much good news recently. The New Year Eve party seemed like a desperate move by our president. The thought of having to drink and schmooze made me a bit gloomy, but I switched gears, thinking, it's part of the job, and prepared for the party. On the day, we arrived at the venue a bit earlier than the other executives. Johnson was supposed to be on a business trip and not attending. This party included families of our business partners, and there were groups of women about my wife's age.
Those ladies are daughters of our clients.
No wonder they look so elegant. We entertained our clients, noticing the different worlds we come from. A while later, the president and Johnson arrived. Isn't he supposed to be away?
Must have rushed back for this brown-nosing event.
Stanton commented sarcastically. The president, accompanied by Johnson, greeted the executives of the business partners and then approached heiresses to greet them as well. The heiresses noticed them for some reason. They looked at Johnson, their faces became severely distorted. And the ladies announced the following.
We didn't know he would be here. Why is he here?
They were shouting.
If he's here, we'll stop doing business.
What?
Johnson exclaimed in shock. Their loud voices caused a stir. The president confronted him.
What did you do to them?
I didn't do anything.
He insisted, shaking his head.
Didn't do anything?
One of the ladies yelled, furious.
You hurt Mary and him.
Mary is my wife's name. The women were pointing at me. What do you mean? I was confused and bewildered. One of them explained.
We're Mary's friends. We were in the same class with her at the Juilliard School.
Coming from an ordinary family, she had attended this prestigious academy as a scholarship student. The Juilliard School, a prestigious K-12 school in the U.S., places a strong emphasis on classical music education. Many world-renowned musicians are alumni. Mary was a promising clarinet player and joined that school, meeting the young ladies from the wealthy families there. Indeed, she was quite a well-known clarinetist before her illness. I had no idea she was friends with my client's daughters.
It's not surprising you didn't know. We kept it a secret from her.
One of them said.
We've been asking our parents to prioritize contracts with your company because you're Mary's husband.
Another added. I was stunned to learn that our company's survival depended on such reasons. The president and other employees were equally shocked. The ladies had gathered to celebrate Mary's discharge from the hospital when they heard about the recent incident.
We came because we heard Johnson wouldn't be attending.
They said, glaring at Johnson as if he were trash.
This might be a good opportunity.
One lady commented, and the others nodded in agreement. Then they turned to me.
How about working for my company?
What? I was taken aback.
We're short-staffed. While we're at it, let's invite the others here to consider joining us.
She said. Another lady followed up.
Our companies are seriously considering stopping dealings with your company. Those who want to escape a sinking ship, please think about joining us.
The president, in a panic, begged to them.
Please, anything but that.
How can we forgive you for hurting our dear friend?
They retorted. What if we fire him? The president asked, pointing at Johnson, who was trembling and shaking his head.
Just firing him won't be enough. We've heard he's your relative.
His behavior is your responsibility as president.
Under relentless criticism from the ladies, the president and Johnson looked as if they might collapse. The party was eventually canceled. The ladies drove the two out, then began offering recruitment tests to the other employees. I decided to join the company of the lady who first invited me. It seemed the best option to earn enough for Mary's treatment. As a result, the company I left faced a mass exodus and chaos. They eventually stopped all business dealings and couldn't focus on management. The president fired Johnson, saying,
"It's your fault."
But it was too late. The company soon went bankrupt. Johnson was left by his wife and daughter and is currently in divorce proceedings. Meanwhile, I'm working hard and enjoying a fresh start at my new job. The lady who hired me warned.
If you ever make Mary sad again, you'll answer to me.
To which I firmly replied, I'll never let that happen. She smiled and has been looking out for me ever since. Mary was surprised to hear about all this but ultimately supported my decision, saying,
If it's her company, I'm relieved.
I'm determined to continue working hard for my beloved wife.